Okay. Hi, my name is Emma Lavelle. I might already be your teacher or your coach, or you might be watching this for the first time. I am a life coach and language coach. These two things will become very important in a moment. And this video is to just talk you through the Notion document that you have with this video, which is all about the fluid English ritual. So this is like a sort of upgraded version of the method that I've been using with my English students for years. But I wanted to do this little video to show you some of the changes that I've made to it in response to where we are right now. Okay. So, for example, when I first started to teach this method to my students, there was no ChatGPT. Okay. So, feedback had to come from a teacher. We were trying to make the feedback loop smaller so that you could evaluate your mistakes and make changes even more quickly, but you still needed to wait for somebody that you trusted. That piece has completely changed. You can have dialogues with AI, you can be getting feedback on your language in real time. There are all these really, really amazing things that you can do where you can be accelerating by yourself. But the piece that is still missing is the human piece, which is our confidence and how we feel in our body about failure and how we feel about connecting with other humans when we're using another language. So I'll run through the method with you. Should I share my screen? I'll share my screen. Okay. So basically, this is it, the Fluid English Ritual. Super simple. It's 3 steps that in a perfect world, you would use them every day. We live in the real world, so every other day is good. I'm happy with that. What I want you to think about, first of all, is not learning in a linear way, right? So, the traditional approach to language learning was you have these books and you work through the levels. And the idea is when you finish the books, you've got your exams, you are completely fluent and you feel amazing speaking in English. The reality is more like we hit upper intermediate, sometimes we hit advanced, we stop speaking the language for a while, we start to feel guilty, we start to feel uncomfortable, we pick it up again, we feel rusty, and we tend to sort of hang out around the same level for a very long time. And then we start to blame ourselves and we think that, oh, well, it's hard learning a language, or you need to move to the country of the place where they speak that language. This is not true at all. Instead, we need to change our mindset to notice that actually learning a language is much more scattered than that, right? We are getting linguistic influences from all around us, from media, from friends, from books, from music that we're listening to, depending on your work. There are all these little influences, and they're specifically unique to you. The way that all those influences combine is unique to your experience going through the world. So, what we want to do is notice, okay, I've already got all of this language. I can already communicate up to this point. Now, where are my gaps? Where are the little pieces that I need to fill in so that I feel fluidity, so that I feel confident, so that I feel like I'm wearing the English? The idea that I have here for you to think about is, why to start playing with this ritual that we've created, the daily three, so that you feel grounded and comfortable using English, so that it belongs to you and it doesn't feel like you're borrowing somebody else's coat, or shoes, even worse, when you're using it. So we have 3 steps that you can take, ideally every day, but every other day is good. A couple of times a week is good. Okay. And I will explain how each of them work. We've got intentional transcription, this is step 1, expansive writing, step 2, and connected speaking, step 3. So, and I've got this image here, by the way, of just this like cafe outside. No idea where it is, but just because I got re-enthused about teaching this method after spending the weekend in Toulouse and just feeling like the playfulness and the joy of being able to go between like English and Spanish and French and hearing other people around me using all their different languages. None of us were perfect in any of them. I left the UK, I mean, I think it's 10 years ago now, and there are some things that I struggle to explain in English. Okay, so even like my connection with the English language, yeah, if I go back to the UK, it will pick up again and it will start to accelerate. But right now, that's not important to me. So I really want you to start to see your languages as alive and having different needs at different points in time. So step one, we do intentional transcription. Now, what that means is we choose a voice model. I call it a voice model because a voice model is somebody who is using English. Ideally, I would say as their first language. It's not essential. If they have a good level and you like how they speak, okay, go for them. But we want them to be like our reference point because very often, lots of my students, they're learning English and they're using the BBC or they're using a movie star or someone in a TV series or on the radio. And what happens is those people don't speak authentically, or if they do, they're not speaking the way that you would do. So you want to think about you in your first language, roughly your age group. Are you a city person or a countryside person? Are you somebody that's quite, you talk about sports a lot, or you're quite fast speaking, fast spoken? Do you use a lot of slang? Do you joke? Are you someone who's more reserved, more calm? A nice thing to do here is to think about 3 words to describe your own personality, and then think about how you would transfer that to finding an example of a native speaker or someone with a high level that also has those 3 words, so that then when you're listening to them and you're checking in with your own progress, or let's say you discover a new word and you're like, is that appropriate for me? Or is that actually more something that an 8-year-old would say or a teenager would say? We can go to your voice model. We can just check in really quickly. A really fun tip now is you can use ChatGPT and you can ask ChatGPT, like, okay, I've just learnt this new word. Is this something that Idris Elba would use? Right? And you can check against it. So we can get these really nice little context checks. And then we can decide if we want to assimilate the language or not. It's up to us. So we get our voice model. We then find a resource. Oh, one moment. There we go. Yeah, my camera goes funny on here sometimes. Okay, so we would then pick either a podcast interview, YouTube video, Instagram, TikTok. We want something where they're speaking in a way that's not too edited. That's the ideal situation. And then we're going to transcribe what they say. 25 to 30 seconds. You don't want more than 2 or 3 sentences a day, no more than that. The reason for that is when you do the transcript, what you will see immediately when you compare it to the original is that you're missing things. And you're missing things there will be 2 reasons. The first is you don't know the word, right? You don't know it at all. So in that case, okay, we're filling in the gap. We learn the word, we learn how to pronounce it. Second reason, you're pronouncing it differently to the way that it's pronounced. Okay, so again, your brain just doesn't hear it. So great, we fill in the gap and we learn how to pronounce it. In fact, third reason is your brain doesn't see the need for the word. So an example of this is if your first language doesn't have articles or it doesn't use a specific tense, or like for me, going into languages that have masculine or feminine before the words, my brain doesn't see why that's necessary, right? It's just not there in English. So our brain's always trying to align and match with what it already has. So transcription is a really great way for us to pinpoint where those gaps are and then start to fill in those gaps. We don't do more than 25 to 30 seconds because honestly, there's no point. We want to start to move in a very fast, agile way. Identify a gap, plug it, and then identify another gap, plug it. If you're doing transcription and you're doing like 7, 8, 10 minutes of it, you're just hearing the same mistake again and again and again without fixing it. Okay. Now, step 2. So the transcription, fantastic. This helps us to identify the gaps. You can also, if you are working on your pronunciation and getting a more neutral accent at this point, it's a great opportunity to do some pronunciation work as well. And just layer that into the daily 3, okay? Rather than doing a separate pronunciation practice, layer it in. Go deeper rather than wider with the tools that you're using. Step 2, expansive writing. Okay, so thus far, passive, okay? The language is coming in, but we're not actually putting it out. Now we want to do writing. When I say expansive, it means using some of the structures that you've picked up in your transcription, whether that's a new word or it's a preposition, verb, collocation that you didn't hear in the past. We want to do a couple of sentences using that because that gives your brain the space to play with it before you start speaking. When we're speaking to somebody, we're usually literally we're in reactive mode. There isn't that kind of reverse room or space for you to play with the language because you're just thinking about, okay, what are they saying? What will I say? And then they're saying, okay, now what will I say? And oh, I'm hungry. What will I have for lunch? Okay, so writing gives you that space to start to expand and to stretch the language that you have to see how well that works for you. And again, now, the beautiful thing, you can get immediate feedback because you can take what you've written, go to ChatGPT or whatever it is that you're using, and ask them, give me feedback, give the context, and then ask for feedback. Now, again, brilliant. So our language, right? We've been filling in the gaps here. We're now kind of moving it to our hand, right or left, depending on which hand you write with. But ultimately, we learn a language to connect with people, right? It's about the connection. It's about feeling that energy and that spark when you have that chemistry and you're talking to another person. So we want to bring it to our mouth. We want to be speaking. I like to use a transcription application called Otter for this. And what I usually do is create a couple of speaking prompts, use ChatGPT, go for it. Or you can use the same couple of questions every day if you like, doesn't really matter. But we then want to be speaking. Now, what will happen is usually you won't like the sound of your own voice. And there's a reason for that. I can't remember what it's called, but most people, we don't like our own voices. It sounds alien to us. The more you are recording yourself, the more you're going to start to acclimatize to the fact that you sound like you. Okay. And at that point, we can really start using your voice as a tool because that's what it is. It is the most powerful tool that you have for connection with other people. It is your blueprint. It is unique. It tells your story. It is so, so powerful. So when we record ourselves, we're getting used to hearing our own voice. We are refining how we use that tool. We're also increasing our resilience to stress levels. We're making our comfort zone a bit bigger rather than having to go into the discomfort zone of public speaking or putting ourselves in scary situations. We're like, no, I'm good. I can hear my own voice. I can put myself into these gradually more stressful situations. I'm increasing my comfort zone with my own voice in English. And that's really, really important. Now, the reason I use a transcription app that catches the audio, not just recording the audio, is so that you can then look at the transcription. It won't always be accurate, right? It misses things. So a lot of the transcription apps are better with an American accent than a British accent. Sometimes when I use Otter, I'll say a word and it doesn't know what I'm saying. It tries to give an American approximation of it, but that's okay, right? It's just, this is a bridge tool for us. What you can then do is look at the transcription and you will notice where you're making mistakes that you don't realize you're making. Very often we have these fossilized mistakes. A typical one is people not pronouncing the ED or the S at the end of words, or for me, just inventing the gender of a word completely because I did it once and then I repeated it there afterwards. Okay, so when we look at the transcription, it gives us an extra step for us to assess and analyze our speech that we don't have when we're actually talking to a human and we're in the moment. And again, we can use our mate, ChatGPT, to take that transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and ask, please give me a list of the errors. And again, give it context. Say, I'm a 37-year-old woman. I'm doing a live on Instagram. My audience are other women in their 30s. I want to sound professional but warm. Give me a list of my mistakes. Tell me how can I improve? Okay. So this whole ritual, the perfect situation is it doesn't take more than 15 minutes each day. And I'm going to ask you to learn to train yourself to just stop at the 15 minutes. The reason we do that, part of my life coaching set of tools is I'm a time hacker life coach. And time hackers, we create time freedom. And one of the ways we do that is we teach our brain that there are consequences, right? We don't just keep working and working and working and allowing things to take as long as possible. So if you invest in the first 30 days or the first week, making sure that you stop on the minute at 15 minutes, even if you don't do what you wanted to do, you don't finish the tasks, what will happen is after 10 days, your brain, or earlier, your brain will be like, oh, she means this, right? We really do only have 3 attempts to do this transcription. We really do only have this much time. And then it will start to feel more exciting, more motivating as well, because like, I can invest 10 to 15 minutes and I can start to feel amazingly confident and I can be building my language skills and I can be improving. And it literally takes 10 to 15 minutes. So that procrastination and avoidance that you may have been experiencing, see ya. Okay, fantastic. So let me know how you get on with this. I don't know where you'll be watching this, but you've got my email address under here. You might be watching in the community, the Life Atelier, in which case you can direct message me. The Fluid English Studio starts with this methodology, but then we provide lots of spaces for you to implement it and practice it. Okay, so we've got like espresso shot conversation classes that are 30 minutes long throughout the week. There's a connected speech self-study course, there's fluid English exercises. So if you do want more support beyond just understanding this method, I definitely recommend check out the page, have a look at how to join, and let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in there.